Hi guys, welcome back. So in the last video we did a video on how to find a single samples t-test, solve for a single samples t-test using SPSS. We're now going to do one for paired samples t-test. So for paired samples t-test, remember it's a within groups design. So you're working with just like one sample of individuals or people or participants or objects or whatever it may be that you're working with. But within that group, they're facing multiple conditions, right? So it's a within groups design. So let's take our example here. So we're going to use 5 participants and we're going to look at their score on an SAT practice test before attending a prep school, and we're going to go ahead and look at their scores after attending a prep school. So 2 conditions, same participants, okay? So if you want to take a minute to pause the video right now and enter in our variables, you may go ahead and do so. Okay, switching over to data view, I have my scores before, I have my scores after. So essentially you should have your column 1 and column 2. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and pause the video, enter this data in, you can do that as well. So now to run your paired samples t-test, go into Analyze, Compare Means, and then Paired Samples t-test. Okay, so you'll see this box show up, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that your first variable, your before variable, is in variable 1, and that your second variable will be in variable 2 box. So to do this, first I'm going to highlight the first one and bring that over, and then I'll highlight the second variable, and if I click the right arrow button, it'll bring it into the variable 2 position as well. Okay, so now this is paired both of these variables together. All right, so now I'm just going to go ahead and do OK. And now you should see your output table. So this is essentially what you should get when you run the test. You'll see your paired sample statistics, which give you the mean, the sample size, the standard deviation, and standard error for each of the variables that you have, so your before and after condition variables. It'll then give you correlations if there are any. So what is the correlation between those 2 variables? And then you'll get mainly your paired samples test output data. So this will give you the mean of that sample, it'll give you your standard deviation, your standard error of the mean, your confidence intervals, your t-statistic, your degrees of freedom, and your significance values. And finally, you'll see your effect sizes. So at a quick glance, if we were to say, hey, like, is this statistically significant, right? We could quickly look at the significance column in the paired samples t-test. Remember, if p is less than 0.05, we're looking at statistical significance. If it's greater than 0.05, we can assume that there is no statistical significance. So here, because your significance value is 0.087 or rounded up 0.09, this is going to be greater than 0.05, which then you can assume that this will not be statistically significant. The other way you can think about this is that for your degrees of freedom, using your degrees of freedom table, if you locate 4 on a 2-tailed test, you'll end up with critical values of plus and minus 2.776. This t-statistic does not meet that critical region area. It actually falls outside of the critical region area of either under negative 2.776, and it's neither over positive 2.776. So that's another way to assume significance and if it's statistically significant. So for this specific test, it is not statistically significant, and this is how you run a paired samples t-test on SPSS.